All right, we'll go with it then. And just want to thank everyone that we probably won't have a long meeting today. I just got a text message from Commissioner Shayenfield that she had an emergency situation meeting come up and will not be there. So I will just be running it today. Kind of what I want to start with is some updates. I have received some people's strategic planning form, and I do appreciate that. And we'll be looking at that. If you haven't got it to me, please get it to me in the next little bit. And kind of where I want to start was just some updates, and I'll just start from the liaison committee. The committee, Dave, I, and Gary have served on that committee, looking at the liaison structure. And we kind of started moving forward on that today a little bit. I've asked at the next agenda, the commissioners will actually be having a discussion about what the intention of a liaison is. Talking to some of the people, folks about this as we've got into this and working on the committee. I think part of the problem is really the discussion of, I don't know if when I came in as a commissioner and the other commissioners came in, if they knew really what their responsibility was as a liaison outside of a communication piece and an intermediary to make things work and have discussions and open it up. But then again, some folks have seen it as where maybe they're more supervisory. And so what we want to do is create exactly what the commission's hope is to have come out of the liaison relationship, and maybe more structure to that. I will be reaching out to each of you guys, none of the elected officials because they don't have a liaison, but reaching out to some of the folks that do have liaisons, saying, what would you like the liaison to be? Because, and having conversations with different people throughout the rest of, throughout the year and such, I do think sometimes it's not understood exactly what that relationship should be. Is it supervisory? Is it communication? And I just think we want to try to define that a little bit better as we look through the system. So Dave and Gary, you were both in on that meeting with me. Do you think that covers kind of what we were talking about? Is there anything to add?
I don't think so, Roy. I think you covered it pretty well.
Gary, anything to add? Okay, with that moving forward, I'll kick it over to Cindy and see if they've made any progression on, and I don't know if Cindy's even up there, on the mission statement. All right, I will come back to Cindy if she pops back on and go from there. I do also know we had Donna Lee was leading the elected officials in some discussions, and I'll just turn it over to Donna Lee for an update of how those have been going.
Sorry.
No, you're good, Donna. Thank you.
Yeah, no, we've met twice, and they've been very productive. And we are planning on continuing to do this on more of a regular basis, so we all know what's going on and what we're facing in each other's offices. We were tasked with what upcoming budget issues that we had. Danny and Cindy and Dave have lost staff due to the early retirement, and they're trying to do what they can without rehiring the positions. They may ask for those to be rehired and or try and make them into a part-time position. And Cindy, this is a slow period with, the elections being over. She's going to try and run it out. We are all very understanding of the budget situation and are going to do our best to help the county in that effort. I know I had somebody leave in October, and it wasn't through the early retirement. I have not hired that position for the reason I know, one, there's a hiring freeze, but also to help the county through this time. We talked about, you brought up the liaison situation, and we talked about whether or not we would like individual liaisons. And the elected officials chose not to have a liaison at this time. But there is a concern that we do have to have more communication with the board one-on-one as peers. There are times, sometimes we feel that the commission feels like there are supervisors. There's certainly, we would love to have one-on-one conversation and have the commissioners come and see what we do, what our statutory requirements are to fulfill the needs of the office and for our constituents. The commissioners, as well as ourselves, were elected by the residents of Sweetwater County, and you guys need to be aware of, what our needs are. As far as the budget on that end as well, it's what's required of us statutorily. The sheriff has some things he'd like to implement. I'm looking at training, and the Supreme Court's requiring our staff to go to Cheyenne to be trained, and that's going to be quite a bit. But I checked with them, and that probably won't be for another year or so. Everybody was very positive about what's going on in their office. Rob mentioned that his 30 top taxpayers have made their first installments. Dave, I'm sorry, was very positive about the responses to his agricultural land projects, and his office was busy getting out personal property renditions and veterans, exemption letters. Danny has some cases that are kind of exciting right now, things going on that, he can't be specific at this time. And we're maintaining, our doors are locked to the public. The office is open. I'm looking at visiting with the judges, and hopefully I'd like to see at the first of the year, if we could change that. I know the commissioners gave that designation to the judges, and I'm going to visit with them about it. But that's pretty much all I have to report. I apologize, I did not get that goal planning to you. I did not see that till after we had met for the second time. But I will get that to you.
All right. I do appreciate it, Donna Lee. And talking, and I think we're going to hear this from a few other people as we talk. I think the greatest thing about this process that I'm hearing from people is just the communication it's creating and the dialogue it's creating. And I think as we look through things, and when we look through some of the first concerns, when we first started this process 3 or 4 months, it was communication, and how do we increase communication? And I think this is a process that we're kind of accidentally learning some methods that could work. So I do appreciate that, Donna Lee, and we'll continue to look at that. So, hey, Gene, have you anyone have anything else, questions for Donna Lee, or anyone from her group have anything to share? Okay.
Roy, it's Rob.
Hey, Rob, how are you?
I'm good. Donna Lee
valued your opinion once today, and that's more than normal.
This is an opinion. This is just an update. As Donna Lee stated, I did make the statement. I was pretty pleased with the payments that we received from the top 30 taxpayers. The one exception to that, and I didn't mention this, and we don't really have any new information on it, but it's Southland royalty, and that is one of the big ones. And I just wanted to let you know where we stand with it. I was talking with John DeLeon the other day again, and we were looking at that bankruptcy case, and we still have the $4.5 million basically that was due on the second half taxes for 2017. But the bigger issue is they have not paid anything on the 2020 taxes. So we actually have I shouldn't say they haven't paid anything. They paid $170,000 of a little over $9 million that was due. So we still have roughly $8.9 million, which is due from Southland that we haven't seen anything on. We'll know more by the end of the month. there's still a chance that they will pay in full by December 31st. John seems to be hopeful that that's the case. I'm a little bit less likely to think that's going to take place. So that's going to be a really big factor moving forward, because that tax payment, if we were to not receive that, if by chance they were to file bankruptcy, because the way the bankruptcy works, it actually absolves them of everything that was filed prior to the bankruptcy stay, which was put in place, which was January of last year. So if they were to file bankruptcy on this year's taxes also, potentially, we'd be looking at the general, well, actually, I shouldn't say general fund, the 12 mil would be affected by a little over $2 million on that again. So that's something we could look at potentially not receiving and not having that money in the carryover moving forward next year if they were to not pay that. So something else just to be aware of.
Thank you, Rob. Anything else from the elected officials? Awesome. Hey, Cindy, I'm going to bounce to you real quick and see if you've had a chance to meet with the mission statement folks at all.
Yes. Sorry, I was late. I was kind of locked out. I was a host on it. It wouldn't let me in because the meeting had already started. So I was listening on the phone, but I apologize for not being able to answer. Yes, we did meet. Myself and Eric Bingham and Bonnie met. Christina has been a little busy on the CARES Act. So we went over our current mission statement and then kind of revised it a little and sent it to our group. And I know that there are some changes that we would like to make before presenting, all the way for everyone to, of course, then add to it or take away. So our beginning one was our mission is to be a proactive county providing community business, government, and regional leadership. We will set an exemplary standard of performance among counties by providing our citizens with cost-effective, efficient, and reliable government services. We seek to develop creative solutions to critical community-wide problems, confronting all segments of our constituency. And it kind of seemed when we went over that it was kind of targeted toward, I don't know, like a specific purpose at that point in time. And I believe it was like 2011. So what we just I'll just go over real quick. We kind of tried to come up with an initial vision, mission statement. And then, like I said, we'll send that out. So we thought maybe our mission is to serve the residents of Sweetwater County by providing our citizens with quality, cost-effective, transparent, and responsible government services. We seek to provide outstanding customer service by facilitating the lines of communication between the county and the residents to work together to meet the needs of those in our communities. So, like I said, we have a couple words in there that we may need to have other input and different things, but we did make a start.
Thank you. That sounds great. And I really appreciate it. And we'll keep rolling on that. And moving forward, it's good to hear some progress and some things we're working on. Hey, Gene, I'll come to you real quick. Have you had a chance to kind of do any of the meeting and discussion with the department heads?
Yeah, we have, and we're meeting every Friday for the foreseeable future. We met twice. We'll meet again this Friday. What we kind of came up with is 3 goals that we're working toward as department heads to be able to better help the county out in the in the long term. One of the most pressing concerns we can see is the budget. So we're trying to figure out how to better define and clean up the budget process. Along with that, creating a spreadsheets with capital categories with everything on it, kind of like Casper has. And we're going through that so everybody can implement them, and then getting a committee together and presenting the board with what we see as our top priorities, and having that be an ongoing committee that just keeps backfilling projects. If stuff comes in loan, we have $50,000 extra. Can we move up a project? Do stuff like that. It also will help out with the six penny projects, getting stuff like that out. We've also talked about some other stuff that needs to be, just brought up as far as employee compensation, where we're going with that, how we're going to cover that, or if we're going to cover that in the budget. And then also, just the buildings in general, on the budget, surplus buildings, how we're going to be able to handle that. But most of it has been centered around getting this worksheet together so we can pass it around, and basically it's going to be just a fill in the blank sheet, so we can forecast that. That way everybody knows, hey, if we put $2 million toward capital, do we cover it all, or do we cover 80% of it, and can we forecast this out for 3 years? So everybody gets a better idea of where we're at. You know, we can't completely get rid of all capital, but we can slim it down and maybe spread it out over things. So we got Tim's looking at putting together computers. You know, of course, I'm looking at roads and buildings. Marty's looking at the vehicles and purchasing and all kinds of stuff like that. So just trying to get everybody together. But like you said, I think the main thing has just been the communication, and trying to help everybody help themselves out in the lean times. Everybody's lost employees and to retirement, some departments more than others. And we're just trying to make sure that we get everybody covered and do the best we can for the constituents and the people we serve.
Thanks, Gene. I think it's really awesome to hear that you guys are meeting every Friday. Anyone else from that group have anything to share, or does anyone have questions for Gene?
All right, this is Donna Lee. I don't
Hey,
have
Donnelly.
a question for Gene. I went back to the mission statement. I'm curious. Are we working on a county logo by any chance?
That hasn't been something we've discussed, but that's definitely something we could definitely look into as we look to move forward, Donnelly.
Because I think we all use different kind of logos on our letterheads and stuff like that, and I just didn't know if we had thought about.
No. I actually like any thoughts on that from anyone on the screen? On the Hollywood board square is what it looks like. Hollywood Squares board is what it looks like.
You know,
Gary.
on a branding, you're talking about common branding. A lot of times your branding comes out after you've finished knowing what your mission is and what you're about and all that type of thing that you're working on presently. And then that brand, common branding, if you go that route, would reflect or represent all the work that this group is presently doing. So I would go in the direction of anything's possible. Thanks. Good call, Donnelly.
Thank you, Doc. Gary, you have something? Unmute. I can't hear you.
Commissioner Lloyd.
Yeah, go ahead, Kandi, while Gary figures out.
I don't know what I'm looking at, but I have a logo that was sent to us a while ago that we put on all of the, the commissioners welcome you to the fair sort of thing, the Sweetwater County logo with the 2 bucking horses on the sides. Is that not your official logo?
I'm going to defer that to someone else because I've really never looked at much of our logo stuff, to be honest with you, Kandi. So I'm not sure. Anyone else have an answer? Doc just raised his hands and Home Alone, I don't know.
I can email it out so you can see it, but it basically has, the S and the R on Sweetwater are large and has Sweetwater County and then the two bucking horses on it. But we have used that traditionally for Sweetwater County on all of the stuff that we do for you guys, but maybe that's not an official logo. But it would be pretty easy to use that and then tag on the bottom the different departments. I'll send that everybody's direction. You can look at it and see if it looks familiar.
Okay.
Roy?
Yes.
So,
Hi, Christina.
hi. So a long time ago, for 2010, there was an effort to create a logo. It was the Pride one that's in the employee manual right now. At the time, the elected officials change, and it seems like every elected office has a logo. So I'm not sure what the answer is to that, but in terms of branding, it's true that as people travel and attend conferences, there is value to being somewhat consistent. So maybe we could look at a core logo with some personalization between offices. I'm not sure, but that was back in 2010 or so.
Thank you. Any other comments on this topic? Okay, so I think that's something we can definitely take a look at. We'll look and see what Kandi sends us and we'll go from there. And then maybe once we kind of get mission and things directed, maybe that's something we'd look at doing is looking at the unified logo. So the last group was the component agencies. And Jason and I have actually talked multiple times about this. And I think the difficulty in making, I think we've seen some really great things come from having the elected officials and the department heads meet independently and go. I think the component agencies are a little bit different because they're all so diverse and different, not even in the same building, same concepts, that I don't know if they're going to get the same mileage and direction out of that. So one of the things that Jason and I had talked about, with Commissioner Shayenfield about was maybe a little bit different direction from them. If they would like to get together and have a discussion and talk about their ideas and how they may partner, that would be great. But also maybe I think we're going to create a little bit of a questionnaire to send out to you guys more about how do you think, where could we provide you assistance? Is there other areas that we can find ways to help partner and find some of the efficiencies that these guys are talking about and going in that direction? And then lastly, and as your plans come in, I think and I've received a couple of them, so I do appreciate it. I think what's really helpful is letting us know what you guys see as your priorities. So as the commission goes and starts setting priorities, we know where you guys are at. So, Jason, does that kind of handle what you and I had talked about a little bit in a paraphrase way?
Yeah, I think that sounds good, Roy. We do have a more unique situation, so I think a unique approach would be the way to go about it.
Yeah. So I think what we want to do is I'll send something out to you guys in the next week or two, just about where you think you might be able to partner with folks, where you might be able to find some help, how we could tag team together to maybe and thanks, Irene. Enjoy your other calls. For whatever reason, it doesn't surprise me that you're busy with everything going on whatsoever. So I appreciate your time.
I appreciate it. This is awesome work, and let me know if you guys need anything. Looking forward to the next meeting, but I apologize, I have to jump off. So thank you.
Thanks, Irene. And
Bye.
so I think what we'll do is send out some stuff of how we could partner and go from there, and then go from that direction with the component agencies. And what, and I think like I said, I think the greatest benefit will be seeing what your plans are and how we can tie that into the way we're going. And the last meeting, Kandi brought some really good stuff in the place. And maybe this becomes a part of bigger discussion, like do their construction projects get put onto some of our master listings and that. And I think that's something we can develop as we go through this process. So I guess within the component agencies, does that sound okay in the right direction to go with you? Or would you prefer to try the meeting with everyone and see what comes from it, or just go in this direction? Okay, we'll go in that direction then. I think that covers all of our subcommittee groups. I think what it then goes to is what's next. And I think before we go, what's next, I think one common denominator when I've talked to people about this process in this meeting or outside of this meeting is some of the difficulty in some of the short-term and even mid to long-term, but more short-term planning based upon one nasty word that's coming up and something we've already talked about a little bit today. And that's that's the budget. And I know, and I'll just throw it over to Doc for a second, who's our current chairman. And just to kind of see, I think our plan is to start having some of those budget discussions next month. I know you had mentioned, Doc, that we are starting to get numbers from Rob and Dave to be able to really take a look at it and go that way. So I think one of the things that's come through some of my discussions and up here is taking a look at that budget stuff. So I guess, Doc, can I turn it over to you for some thoughts on that?
Yeah, thanks, Roy. As far as budget goes, I think it's going to be real important to see those third quarter numbers that Dave and Rob will have for us. I don't know if there'll be that much significant change. And then, of course, I think what's important is once we get our new commissioners oath taken and involved, we need to talk about how we're going to approach that and work through that situation. So I do know that I sense that there's going to be a real desire to get into the weeds with budgets. I'll be honest with you. So with that in mind, it'll take a definite process. It's going to take more time. So that will relate to what I've heard a lot of people, a number of people saying, hey, we got to get started a little sooner. I don't think it's so much getting the forms filled out that Bonnie puts out, but I think it's more of the conversations and explaining what's in the getting into those weeds and that type of thing, because like I've said, just running the numbers through my mind and listening to Bonnie and listening to Dave and Rob and others that really crunch numbers, we may say our revenue based on valuation is $6+ million short, but in reality, our budget is a lot shorter than that based on if we don't have a carryover or if we go into reserves. So it could be a lot more. So I would like to say this. I know we're going into the holidays, but when everybody comes back from the holidays, it becomes very important that you begin to look at what your budgets are for the rest of the year and really consider the fact of not purchasing anything that we don't need, so that whatever occurs as we finish up or whatever we do it from this point forward will definitely impact how we prepare for the next fiscal year. I sat in, like I shared earlier in the meeting, I don't know if everybody heard it, but we do know that the governor's next cuts include a 10% reduction in the payment, direct distribution payment to city, towns, and counties. And to the county, that's $110,000. As much as I think we all have our fingers crossed that that'll be not only a new CARES Act funding coming forward, we're also hoping there's some work done with the previous funding. In other words, really relaxing some of the stipulations that have been tied into it. But seeing's believing. And until we see it, we need to prepare and that type of thing. So Roy, that's the best I see it. We will probably do most of our budget by Zoom with everyone, but we definitely as commissioners need to visit and figure exactly what it is we're looking for as we move forward. Thank you, Roy.
Okay. Any questions for Doc?
Doc, just to give you a little update, this is Dave. We did get part of the numbers in, those third quarter numbers you were talking about, and things are looking a little better. I mean, a great interpretation of this is things aren't really, really, really bad. They're just really, really bad. Yeah. So I think the number's going to be closer to like 4.5, maybe 5 million instead of the 6 million we were talking about initially. But again, I'm still waiting on data. That's just, extrapolation and crossed fingers, but it may not be quite as bad as we thought initially. And what had happened is the price of natural gas went up significantly at the end of September. So if that actually equates with some additional production, then maybe we'll get a little reprieve there, but it won't be enough to make up all the difference, not at all. So just so you're as up to date as you can be at this point.
And I appreciate that. That's good news, because we know that our goal is, at least within County Core, is that we don't balance the budget on the back of our employees at the county. So any news is in the positive, Dave, is good news. So we'll ride on that. That's a Christmas gift. Thank you. Merry Christmas.
So as we move into early next year, it sounds like, we're really going to start taking a look at that and really delving into that and going that direction. And I think in a way, that's kind of the elephant in the room as we look at all of it. When I've talked to everyone about the strategic planning is really where we at with that budget, and it's hard to plan when you don't know. But with that being said, we should still be looking at what we want to accomplish that we think helps the constituents in moving forward. And then we prioritize it and we work in that direction, or what are the priorities and how do we get there? So any questions on that? Christina.
So I have a couple questions. Is the commission going to create like a finance committee to analyze the budget, or is that not being discussed? And I guess I was also on a segue wondering if the county has looked at running a budget maybe 3 years in advance, given the current employment numbers and maybe capital projects that run over multiple fiscal years.
All right, I guess I'll defer and let Doc take a lead on that, and then go from that point.
Christina, I can't speak for the other commissioners, but that's part of that conversation of where we're going to go and how we're going to get there. So I think it becomes important that we involve our new commissioner in it once they're sworn in, and then going from there. But I think, everybody has their thoughts. It's just a matter of how putting it together to best, to best use everybody's time. I guess that's the way.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then a follow-up, are the commissioners also looking at their own community priorities? For example, you're asking departments and elected officials and component units to discuss their priorities. And I'm wondering, is the commission doing the same thing that we would feed into? And that would assist with the mission statement, spending, new projects, et cetera. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, Christina, my plan is to get that same questionnaire out to the commissioners. And I made that decision about a week ago, and I've just been a little slow in getting it out there. Because I do agree. I think we need to all kind of talk about what our priorities are, and then start to create that same concept and that common goal like we're having you guys do. And I think the key is then we're going to take all this information, that really, as Mike said last time, from this, really from the smaller concept of what departments were, subcategories were, and then ours, and use that to start creating that master list. So I do believe we have to look at it. And I think, I can tell you that Jason Grubb and I've had multiple conversations about this. And I think one of the biggest things and difficult things from this budget, and once again, one commissioner, like Doc said, is in ways we're not just looking at significant cuts. We're looking at having to change some of the philosophical, cultural, systematic approaches that we've taken at the commission in a long time. About 25 minutes ago, I told Jason Grubb that maybe some of the strategic planning was about a year too late in some respects. But hey, better late than never to get rolling and trying to find some direction. And so instead, what happens is you kind of find yourself playing behind the 8 ball as you're kind of planning and moving forward. But yeah, Christina, I do think it's important that I will be soliciting that discussion from the commission, and I will be putting actually on the commission agenda next meeting that, to start some of the discussions about the liaisonship, how it should work. And I do think these are other discussions we will have to have in the short term to start moving long term. So does that answer your question, Christina?
Yep, I was just curious, and I think that would help out, the communication going 2 ways. And, as we identify projects, it is important to have both sides of it. So thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on that?
Chairman Lloyd, this is
Chairman,
Gene.
yes, sir.
As part of the department meetings, we've been discussing having 3-year capital costs out so we can plan that. I don't know if I highlighted that in our thing. And also, getting a committee together. We don't know who it'll all be made up of, and presenting them to you guys for further whittling down. So that has been in the talks, at least in the department head meeting, the last 2 meetings.
Thank you, Gene. Any other comments? So I think that leads us to what the next step is. And to me, I think the next step is twofold. If you haven't had a chance to get the goals and thoughts to us, please do. I'd like to see our committees keep working. I will be contacting the component agencies with some information to, gather more information. I'll also be sending to the commissioners the same worksheet to kind of get their opinions, and then we will start working together to come up with that same concept also in the next 1 to 2 meetings. And then I think as we continue to build this, I think the next step maybe at the next meeting is to discuss maybe creating another subcommittee. And I know we all love meetings, and I feel like we meeting to get together, meeting to death to get to points. But then maybe taking fragments of all these different pieces of the plan and starting to put it together a bigger puzzle. So that's kind of where I'm seeing as the next direction. And then the second component of that, I think we've already kind of touched basis on with Chairman Wendling. And that would be to start to take a look at how the budget plays into this and where we move with the budget, which would be a little bit different from this committee. But I think that's something I know the docs and the rest of the commission is eager to start. I don't know about eager, but we know we have to start taking a look at and moving forward way earlier than normal and being a little more progressive and looking outside of the box to get there too. So is that a fair statement, Doc?
Fair statement. Fair statement. Good job.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is hold the next meeting, the next workshop after the second meeting in January with some of the concepts of just getting updates. And then maybe at that point, start talking about creating another committee that starts to take all the information in, and maybe it would be the leaders of the component agents of the different subgroups we have, and start looking about how we wedging stuff together. Does that make sense? And does anyone have any other thoughts with that as we go into this process?
Commissioner Lloyd, this is
Yeah. Hey, sorry. Thanks, Mike. I've been waiting for you to hear your voice.
It's such soothing, isn't it?
I don't know about that. I'm just used to hearing you always talk. So it's just more than I. So just give me that.
I know you want to keep it short, so all I'm going to do is chime in with this. I think I would maybe ask for a little patience in letting the committees that are currently working work through their discussions and their process. I know that what Gene's led us in the department head meetings has been extremely productive, well thought out. We need time to work through what we've already been discussing. And I'm sure some of the other committees could use some more time to work through there before we go to that next step. I know we need to get things done, but I think we're at a good pace right now. So I would just ask for maybe just a little patience to let the current committees work through their current assignments.
I would be okay with that, Mike, Chief Bournazian. And maybe what we do is maybe we convene again the second meeting of February, and then at least get updates and then make a decision of where we go from there based upon the pace and the direction of those groups. How do you feel about that, guys? Or everyone?
I like that.
I'll just be honest. I'm really glad to hear people feel like we're making progress in these subgroups. And I think as you guys meet in subgroups, the one thing I would like you guys to also discuss is something that has come out in a couple different ways, is how it's helped with the communication, is if there's other ways these subgroups can see that we can better communication amongst each other, from the commission to you, and any other direction, please share that. I think that's because when we start to talk about it all, a lot of the concerns and things we needed to start growing and directing was creating better communication. So maybe that could be a sub discussion as we go through to figure out how we create a better communication between everyone. So with that, I'm completely good if we want to look at the second meeting in February as our next meeting. That will also kind of open up the table a little bit if we have to go into some more budget specific discussions to open up January and early February for that. And then we can go from there. Doc, you were about to say something.
No, I just want to, I know you're finished, but I just want to say Merry Christmas, everybody. If you're traveling, travel safe. Make sure you stay well. And I can't tell you how much appreciated working with everybody. This year's been a tough year, but everybody has done well. My heart goes out to the many, many families out there that may have Christmas, but may not be with the loved ones that they normally have it with. And that, but I also want everybody to know, look forward to having another great year with everybody. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, be safe and travel carefully. Thank you.
Anything else from anyone else closing? Thank you guys. I really appreciate the work we're doing. And Mike, thanks for slowing me down a little bit. I do think that's a good idea. So thank you to everyone, and we'll talk again in the next couple months. So feel free to reach out if you need anything.
Thanks, Roy.
Thanks, guys.